What is your best met the high school bully as an adult story? I ran into a high school classmate a while back. I've posted this before but it bears repeating. A guy in high school just didn't like me and I him. We got into a big damn fight. He broke my nose and I knocked a couple of his teeth out, off campus. No police were involved, but about 10 years later I saw him sleeping on the street near where I worked. I woke him up and asked him what was going on. He told me about his life after high school. He knocked up his girlfriend, her parents made them get married, divorce a year later. He got into drugs and ended up alienating everyone. I asked him if he was still using, and he said no, he couldn't buy a dose anyway. I felt bad for him, so I asked if he'd like to stay in my guest house, a one-room cottage, set up like an efficiency apartment, for a while. He took me up on it and got a night's sleep in an actual bed for the first time in years. His words. I bought him some clothes and fed him for about a month until I found him a job with a contractor I was doing some work for. Long story short, it's been 6 years. He now owns a contracting business, has a wife and a new baby boy, and just bought the house down the street from me. My then fiancé took me out to dinner in my hometown, where we had our first date, to celebrate my new promotion. I recognized our waitress right away as the girl who had been mean to me in 6th and 7th grade, the only years we had classes together. She didn't seem to recognize me. I had gained a lot of weight and the restaurant was dark, so I let it go and treated her like any other waitress. When the bill came I asked my now husband how we should tip. She was a great waitress and deserved a generous tip like we usually do, but the urge to stiff her was there as payback. I decided to tip her generously and let the past go. But I did leave a note next to the tip. Here's to believing that people did grow up after high school. And I signed it class of 20 ***. The next day I got on Facebook and she had sent me a message. She said she had recognized me, but I looked happy, so she said nothing, and she treated me like any other customer. Then she apologized for anything she might have done to me in school. It was a hard time for her, and she didn't like to think about who she was then. Some bullies do grow up, and I'm glad we both did the right thing. I grew up in Northern California, and every summer a bunch of people take to the water and go tubing down the Sacramento River. A popular stopping place mid-end of the route is Beer Can Beach. It was here that I ran into this guy that was terrible in high school as I was docking my tube. Me, hey I him, in a clear oh, I was awful to you, I should feign niceness tone. Hey, how's it going? Me, through gritted teeth, awesome him, pause, you fucking hate me, don't you? Me, surprised at his astute observation, yeah, I really do. Him, what would make you feel better and us to be cool? Me, if you let me shoot you in the face with this super soaker. Him, okay. Me, really? Him, and then we'll be cool. Me, yeah, we'll totally be cool. And then he let me shoot him in the face with a super soaker in a constant stream until it ran out of water. It felt amazing. He knew he deserved it. He took his punishment. We both laughed and hugged. Worth it. When I was a kid, I was fat. I used to get picked on all the time by this kid at church named Rusty. He was about 5 years older than me, and every couple of weeks he would beat me up. I moved away when I was about 14, and thankfully, I didn't have to deal with him anymore. When I went to college, I decided to get my act together and get healthy. To that end, I started taking mixed martial arts. I did it for about 2 years, and lost about 40 pounds. When I graduated, I moved back to where I was from, and started looking for a new MMA gym. I went to the most reputable one, and who should be there, but Rusty. It sounds too good to be true, but I swear to God, it happened. He hadn't changed a bit. The first thing he said to me was finally trying to learn to defend yourself. I had called ahead, and the instructor knew my deal, and had arranged for me to come watch. I left my gear in the car. At the end of class, they do free rolling, jujitsu sparring. Rusty comes up to me, having no knowledge that I'm the least bit experienced, and starts begging the instructor to let him spar me so he can show me the ropes. After all, he's been in MMA for 3 months now, and he never misses a UFC pay-per-view. I went outside and changed. Long story short, we sparred, and I choked him out 3 times. Afterwards, I signed up for classes. He grabbed his bag, left, and never came back. This is my favorite story out of everything that has happened in my life thus far. I'm the only person I know that got to beat up my childhood bully as an adult. Sorry if this seems sparse, I'm on mobile. I was playing poker in Atlantic City about 7 years ago, and one of the guys that bullied me, Chad, sat at my table. There's no way he recognized me. I was actually playing on an all-limit hold'em table while waiting for a seat to open in a two-way high-low game. Anyway, I stayed at the table just to take his money. I played probably 95% of the pots he was in. He was pretty drunk and wasn't very good. I got close to $600 off of him in a little over an hour before he decided to quit. I have no idea what he does for a living, but I'm 100% sure he is a big loser when he plays cards. I go into my mechanic to change my brakes. The usual milfy cashier offers me coffee. I make small talk, been going there forever. They're an honest car repair shop, believe it or not. Then I notice the guy hunched over a Honda. I call out. He turns, squints his eyes, goes, "Hi Ugafan." I call him out on his behavior. He tells me he's straightened up after mouthing off to the wrong person nearly cost him his life. He showed me a shank wound 3 centimeters under his heart. He's apparently happily finishing a course in auto repair and had just been hired at the garage. He turns out to be a nice guy, having sorted out his issues. I routinely bring him donuts when I bring the car in, and he gets me rebates because dude, I brought donuts. Ours was extremely smart and very athletic. He was an incredible wrestler and undefeated throughout high school. I saw him at a party at a friend's house randomly, and we caught eyes a few times and eventually we just approached each other and said hello, exchanged bro hugs. Mind you, we hardly talked. The only time we really did was when I told him to stop picking on someone and told me he would kick my ass instead. He was a lovely guy. Anyway, he hadn't changed one bit. He tried to pick fights with people throughout the night and kept looking at me while he was in yelling matches with people. So I kept getting in between him and the other person, telling them both to calm down. This happened a few times until it started getting a little physical and he looked at me again. So I stood up and he tried to push the guy one more time. So I grabbed him by his shoulders and started pushing him back, telling him to cool it, and I thought, what the fuck am I doing? He is an angry wrestler that can take me down. Once I got him back a ways and told him to knock it off, he just looked at me and said, "You know what I could do to that guy, but I don't want to. Please, stop me." It was the saddest hold me back bro moment I have ever been a part of. It was odd that he kept looking for me to stop his fights, but I was glad I was that guy for a bit. I own my own gym and have for a few years now. I received a message one day from a familiar looking name on the business Facebook page from a woman asking to come try us out. We set it up. She comes in for an introduction. She's a very large and out of shape woman at this point. After about 5 minutes of working with it hits me that this lady used to be about half her current size and was an absolute B underscore in her heyday. I decided not to bring it up to her as she appeared to be struggling in life and came to us in a time of need, and I took it, as I do with all of my clients, as a cry for help. Not to mention, I'm a grown man now, and that seemed pretty silly and insignificant in life today. Months later during one of the classes, I noticed her struggling real hard, so I go over to offer some encouragement. As I lean down to say something to her, I notice she's crying faintly to herself. She looks up at me and quietly says, "Sorry for how nasty I was to you years ago, and thank you for doing this for me." Turns out an old mutual friend told her about my place and she recognized me as the owner and came to me on purpose. No, not a story of revenge or retribution, but she reached out to someone she was terrible to, and today she's repurposed, and I find it to be quite inspiring. I've got two. I was picked on a lot. About 10 years ago I got a temporary job at Kroger. It was just stocking shelves, and I had another restaurant job lined up, but needed something for about 2 months. While I went through a lengthy hiring process there, spoiler, I wound up getting an even better job elsewhere, and wound up never taking that. So I go to get my check on my first payday at Kroger and find out the manager at the front is one of the guys who used to bully the shit out of me in high school. He made small talk for a minute. "Hey, how you been? Good to see you." He clearly remembered. Once everyone walked away, he leaned in and said, "Hey, deprecated Zero. I'm really sorry for all the shit I did to you in school. I was a stupid asshole kid." I smiled, held out my hand, thanked him and told him it's all in the past. That was really cool. The other is less cool, but hilarious to me. This girl was the prom queen, basically, the stereotypical mean girl dating the football player. My opinion of her was always that she was just spoiled, worthless, and dumb. I don't usually take joy in other people's misfortune, but I felt schadenfreude in unparalleled amounts the day I walked into Buffalo Wild Wings and saw her standing behind the counter. This is maybe 10 years out of high school. She looks exactly the same. Put on some weight, maybe, but hair still done the same. Still looks like she got a featuring kid to do her makeup, so on. You can tell at a glance that she's never mentally moved past 8th grade. I asked how she'd been, tried to politely talk to her, because hey, I want people to do well. She was a bitch, was like, "Ooh, you're deprecated Zero." I just raised my eyebrows at her and let it go. Long story short, her boss was my roommate. I asked him about her, single mother, just got kicked out of her mom's house. He just hired her like 2 weeks earlier. He confronted her about talking down to customers and wound up firing her. Felt like justice. I was never really picked on in high school, besides the fact that I was years behind everyone in growth. Late bloomer, I guess you could say. I was part of the cool people clique. Although I was generally nice to everyone, I did let my popularity go to my head a few times, and would treat a few guys in some of my classes like they were my minions or servants. As I grew up as a person, I realized how much of a fucking tool I was, and felt terrible about it for years. It just so happens that 2 of the main guys I picked on were gay and are now life partners with each other. I instantly recognized them coming at an expensive place I was taking my girlfriend out to eat for our anniversary. They didn't make reservations, and there was at least hour wait. We had just been seated, but I instantly knew this was my time to say I was sorry. So after a few minutes of explaining to my girlfriend why I needed to do this, I called them over, told them to take our seats, and how sorry I was for being a dickbag to them in high school. Wished them luck, and paid for their dinner and dessert. Me and my girlfriend decided to get some fast food and go for a picnic. 2 weeks later I got a message from both of them saying that that was the nicest thing anyone has ever done for them, and they forgive me for all the times I treated them like shit. I live in the deep south, where being gay is heavily unaccepted. 2 months after that I got a wedding invite. One of the coolest weddings I have ever been to, and so glad that's how it all played out. This one is a classic. This girl used to torment me all through high school and middle school. Really went out of her way to tear me down. Whenever we had a class together, she would make her extreme dislike for me apparent, and, of course, other kids followed. I couldn't open my mouth without some kind of ridicule. Of course I was miserable, and my dad would try to cheer me up. "Don't worry kiddo, one day she'll be working at a McDonald's and serving you fries." He actually referred to her as McDonald's for years. A couple years after graduating high school I went to a Hardee's with my dad, and there was McDonald's behind the counter. So I go up to place my order, and before I finish she says, "You don't remember me, do you?" "Oh, I remember you." "Oh. So, would you like fries with that?" "Why yes I would." "Way to go, Dad." Called it 9 years in advance. I had a grade 11 history teacher who picked on me, insulted me in front of the class, and gave me shitty grades. He told me he would never send his own children to public school with such morons. Fast forward 5 years or so, I'm almost finished my first degree, and have made all A's in university so far. Shitty teacher comes into the physiotherapy clinic I'm working at. My coworker deals with him, and I tell her the story. When he comes back to book his next app, my coworker started talking about me, as if she didn't know he had been my teacher. Bragged about how she loved mentoring students who are doing so well in school, and how successful I had been at work so far. He never returned for his second apt. Kendall was the little Ashad bully. His older brother Adrian was my friend. Kendall made my life in high school a living hell. Lots of teasing and stuff. He beat the crap out of me in the gym lockers one winter, took my clothes, and left me to walk home naked. but Adrian and I joined the army together. Years later, Adrian was in my unit, different platoon, and was killed in Iraq. I volunteered to fly with his body back home for his family. Kendall never showed up, not even to the funeral. I heard that he was shacked up with some coke whore downtown, so I went over there, kicked in the door, dragged Kendall out by his hair, and pushed and kicked and dragged him the 2.5 miles to the cemetery, where I had buried his brother that morning, berating him on how horrible of a person he was. Kendall was a bloody mess by the time we got to his brother's grave. I beat the ungodly shit out of him, right on the freshly turned dirt, then I left him there. A year later, on the anniversary of Adrian's death, I returned to his grave. Kendall was waiting on me. He was cleaned up and sober and apologized to me incessantly. After lunch, he asked me to take him down to the recruiter's office to join up and make his brother proud. This was one of the greatest moments in my life. Just a generic high school reunion story. The 2 to 3 most athletic kids had gained weight and gotten some chick pregnant. I think one was still with the mother, who had gained even more weight, and one paid child support. The hot girl that every guy wanted to bang had gotten married and had 3 kids, was still smoking hot, but had gotten super religious to the point that it was creepy. I ran into somebody in high school that I used to pick on regularly when we were in 1st/2nd grade. We recognized each other, and I walked up to him. We exchanged a few words, since I hadn't seen him in close to 10 years, and then didn't talk again. But right before we parted ways, I apologized for the way I treated him as a child. I couldn't stress how sorry I was for being a piece of shit to him for no other reason than I felt like it. I still occasionally think about him and where he's at in life.